Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Summit Podcast. My name is Alex Hanna. I'll be your host today. And today with me, I have Derek Miller. Derek, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
I'm Derek Miller. I'm from Central Illinois. Kind of, me and another guy team up, and we oversee our BIM department at Henson Robinson Company out of Springfield. Kind
Nice.
of how me and Alex got to meet. I had some questions for him, so it's always nice being able to talk to everybody.
Yeah, I mean, you and me, we got together on LinkedIn. So
Yeah,
I can't remember how it started, but you're just a cool dude. And then we just kept talking.
yeah,
So
yep.
I forgot what the question was. You think you were moving and you were starting your own fabrication kind of workflow, right?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing I got with you on was hangers. We were
Mm-hmm.
trying to cut hangers, and so we don't even cut hangers like that, we were then. We've kind of changed our ways on how we even do that, which we'll probably get into later. Just finding out what the best workflow is compared to what someone else is doing may not be what works good for us.
Right. And
And
we're all here to see that. And, everyone out there listening, hopefully this would hopefully inspire and get you into the workforce, whether you're a pipe fitter or electrician or going into BIM, right? That's kind of what we're here for. So
yeah, exactly.
let's start out, Derek. What's some latest tech you've been doing? I did see on LinkedIn you're at the state capitol.
Yeah, Illinois State Capitol building. We we actually we had the scanning subbed out on that project, but we ended up buying our own scanner, and boy, that makes a big difference. Whenever you're actually the one, because we had someone that was 2 hours away coming down and scanning. So
Right.
if they missed something, it wasn't something where they could just come right back and do it. And then they were only offering a black and white scan, where everything we scan is color.
Okay. So
Go ahead.
I was going to ask, so with the scanning, what is a scan? Explain the point of LiDAR and scanning the best you can. I want to hear kind of your rendition of it.
So basically what LiDAR scan is you're taking millions of measurements in seconds. So I can take like the Illinois State Capitol building. That building had no model that was even close to what it is. It was built in,
sure.
I think it started in 1860 and finished in 1883 or something like that. I could be wrong on the dates, but it's somewhere around there. So, back then, if the steel layout, if they're like, oh, well, this steel, it works better over here, a couple inches this way or a couple inches that way. That's just how they installed it. So with that technology, we'll go down there. We'll do 4 to 5 minute scans. I know a lot of people, they're like, oh, we can do 2-minute scans and we've got everything we need. Well, a 4 to 5 minute scan, we're going to get more than everything we need. And we do this area is so dense with walls, and you've got block and stone, and there's 25-inch thick brick walls in that building that that's what their foundation, on top of their foundation, that's what it is.
25
inch thick brick walls, not block,
goodness.
brick.
So
and
mason and all that stuff down there.
Oh yeah,
every brick by brick.
Yeah, could you imagine? They've got people down there tuck pointing now that'll tuck point for the next year, just tuck pointing on that brick in. Pointing is basically whenever they ground the mortar out between the bricks and then refill it back in because it's cracked or you got loose bricks. Okay. So they'll do that. But with the 3D scanning, we'll go down there. We'll take a 3D scan, which, like I said, basically millions of measurements over a 5-minute period of time. It'd be like having 100 tape measures pulling every different direction from where you are, up, down. If you can basically put your head on a swivel, and if you can see it, that scanner can see it. And so our scanner is a 70-meter scanner. So that means in 70 meters, it's good for up to a 1/16 of an inch, which, with as densely populated as that area is down there, we're doing maybe 30, 40-foot scans max. Compared to if you were in a big warehouse, you could do 60, 70 feet, 100 feet if you wanted to, and it wouldn't be a problem. So with us fabricating from these scans, we want to get as much as possible. So we'll take that scan, 3D scan. Like I said, it's basically like you're going into a model, and you can see everything. You're creating a model from all those points. And actually, so we have a Faro scanner.
I was gonna ask, are you a Leica Faro guy? Because we have Faro where I'm at, and I've used Leica in the past, and
Mm-hmm.
everyone's got their own team, White Sox, Cubs, and stuff. So.
Exactly. Well, it's funny, you create that 3D model. Faro actually scanned what it's in a game. They actually scanned the I can't think of it. That cathedral that burned down overseas.
Oh, Notre Dame. Yeah.
Notre Dame, yes. So they scanned that for a video game. I forgot what game it's in. Maybe Assassin's Creed.
Yeah, it sounds like an Assassin's Creed thing. Yeah.
So they scanned that, and whenever they rebuilt that Notre Dame, they used that model that they made from the game.
Imagine tech has come so far. Like when we were going to school, it was drafting.
Yeah. And what's crazy is I never even touched it.
Tech. Yeah, right?
Well, you came from the field. Yeah, I came from the field. So, all my experience with the trades was, I graduated high school, and then I worked at UPS for 4 or 5 years, and I was applying. Actually, I applied for electricians, and I applied to be a lineman. And they told me this was in 2007. They're like, "Yeah, you'll be in this spring. We take 15 guys a year. You're number 3 on the list. Don't worry about it. You'll be in this spring." Well, 2008, the ball dropped, so nothing moved, and they took one apprentice over 2 years. So then I started applying for other trades and applied for sheet metal.
For you.
What's that?
So what got you into the trades? What made you want to go that route rather than going to college the traditional route?
So I'm not a book guy by any means. You give me a book and it tells me how to do something, I'm gonna struggle with it. But you put me next to somebody who's doing that, I'm gonna excel, because I'm gonna say, "Hey, why don't you let me do it, and you watch? And if I'm doing something wrong, tell me. You tell me how to do it. Oh, actually, I hit something. You tell me how to do it, and I'll do it. That way, I can learn how to do it as I go, because that's the way I learn. I'm a hands-on learner, and actually down the road from where I grew up, one of my friends' parents was a sheet metal worker. And he's like, "Hey," he goes, "why don't you apply?" And so I did, and it kind of went from there. And I didn't know construction. I helped my dad build some decks and stuff like that. But coming from the trades like that, going into a trade, you learn so much. I specialize in sheet metal. I'm a union sheet metal worker. I got in 2012. I spent 10 years in the field, but with that experience, you see carpenters, you see electricians, you see all these other trades, you see pipe fitters, plumbers. Being a sheet metal worker, a lot of people say, "Oh, you're a welder." Well, that's not all we do. We do, we'll do heavy fabrication, we'll do duct work, we'll do metal roofing, all the way down to putting some gutters, coping, flashing, whatever was flat metal before that's been bent into something else is what we do.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it's you learn so much from doing that, and it's like I said, it's like you make friends with the other trades too. My dad, he lives about a half an hour away from me. There's a foreman that I work with that I helped him out with some duct work. He's a pipe fitter, so I helped him out with some duct work at his house, and he's like, "Hey, I owe you." So my dad had a little pinhole leak in his copper, in one of his copper lines, water lines, and I was like, "Hey, man," I said, "Do you think you could swing by there for me and just he'll have everything pulled out. All you gotta do is cut it and then pro press it back together for me." And on the way home, he did that for me. You make those friends, you make those acquaintances that you scratch someone's back, they're gonna help you out. So that's always cool too. Most of the people that I talk to throughout the week, even after work, are people that I've learned or I've met in the trades.
Yeah, what's
So
crazy is like, I'm a jack of all trades and master of none, right? I've done everything from
yeah,
phlebotomy, working in a hospital, bartending for 10 years, painting fences. My
yeah,
dad was a contractor, so he was a
yeah,
mechanical contractor up in Chicago. So I kind of, like I said, jack of all trades, master of none. Nothing that makes me money, but
yeah,
what,
exactly
what's
right.
what's great is, yeah, that experience you talk about, in the field.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to say I'm a trade guy, and I don't like you. Trade guys are a different animal, but in the field,
That's for sure.
yeah, in the field when you're out there and you're talking to these people and you're meeting all these things, these networking things, right? You're
Yeah.
learning, right?
Yes.
So when I talk about trades, I talk about like there's on-job learning, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that's basically
Yes.
100% what trade is. You obviously
Yes.
go to school, you got your technical stuff you got to learn, but then there's
Mm-hmm.
on-job trade. And
Yes.
something I've been pushing for BIM is a trade. Yeah, it
Oh,
takes some
yes, it
skill and
is.
stuff, but you can come out of college and you can do coordination meetings, you can do project management, and you're probably a rock star at it.
Yeah.
The problem with BIM today is all these kids that are coming out of these 2-year degree associate's degrees, they get put into a
Mm-hmm.
department and they're like, okay, plumb this. And I'm not a
They're
plumber.
like, I've never done it. I've never
Right,
done it. What am I supposed to do? And
right,
we see that. We've seen that too. Like, you get people who don't have enough time in the trade to do what they're doing and to know what they're doing. Like, let's say for me, sheet metal, an offset should always be 3-to-1.
hmm
For every 1 inch you offset up, that offset needs to be 3 inches long. So if it's a 6-inch offset, it needs to be 18 inches long. That's just me knowing that, and that's SmackNet. Compared to someone who came out of college, they're not going to know those special rules
right, right.
because that's what we've learned. And luckily, I spent a lot of my time throughout my apprenticeship over at the University of Illinois doing a handful of projects
Awesome.
over there with them, which, my apprenticeship was 4 years long. So they go above and beyond SmackNet. So with that, I always go by their rules because I know if I go by their rules for whatever I'm doing, I'm going to
You're
go
within
above and
code.
beyond.
Yep,
Yes.
you're within code. I had a similar situation. So believe it or not, I've been in BIM for a while and didn't know it till about 4 years ago. I was
Yeah.
manufacturing side. I get into construction and I try to avoid it like a plague. That's a whole backstory we're not going to get into today. But then
Yeah.
you learn about this word BIM and then you're like, oh my God. And it's a whole industry now.
Oh,
Like I
yeah.
talked about drafting before. You go to these 2 years degrees. I learned how to manual draft, and then you get drafting technologies and you spend 30, 30 days with SolidWorks and you spend 30 days with AutoCAD and 30 days with and Inventor and Revit. And so you touch all this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not really I know anything I'm doing, right?
But
So the
you
way
know how to navigate what you need to.
yeah,
That's
so
the biggest thing.
the way I learned most of the trade stuff was one through all the code books and stuff and regulations you got to look through. The other part
Mm-hmm.
was the guys kicking in the door saying, "Yeah, what the hell is this?"
Yeah.
And you learn real quick. But
Yeah.
the great part about it is that's that networking I'm talking about in the trades. You can get that with BIM. That communication to the
Yes.
field is absolutely key. But I love that communication because every time I mess up, that's a new memory I've unlocked, right? That I can go in and say, my offset is always, if it's 3, it's 6, if it's
Yeah.
8, it's 16, that's the kind
Yep.
of stuff that I like, that I learned from the trades.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then, yeah, I mean, it's a great network for me to get into where I'm talking to you. Like I'm a BIM guy. I'm a behind the
Yeah.
office desk guy. You're 10 years in the field and you get into BIM, right?
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
first thing you're doing is you're
Exactly.
trying to figure out where to go. Which actually, I want to know
Yeah.
how'd you go from the field 10 years to then get behind a desk and modeling?
So I'll back it up a little bit. So I went through 4 years of my apprenticeship. After I got out of my apprenticeship, work got a little slow. Being union, you get laid off.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I got laid off, and I'm a pretty personable guy. I was talking to one of the air balancers that were there, and I was joking around with him. I was like, "Hey, if you guys ever need someone young and raring to go, just let me know." And he goes, "Are you serious?" And I was like, "Well, I mean, if I get laid off," and he goes, "Well, here's my number. Call me if you get laid off." So a couple weeks down the road, I got laid off. I kind of saw it was coming. And usually, first year journeyman, you're going to get laid off. It's just kind of like a rite of passage thing.
Right.
So I get laid off. I contact that guy a couple weeks later because I was kind of enjoying my time off a little bit. I went 4 straight years without a vacation or anything.
Right.
Because you got school, and then so I contacted him, and he goes, "Well, we don't have 40 hours a week for you, but if you want to learn with me, we can do 2-3 days a week until we're busy enough to where I can put you at 40." And I said, "Well, that sounds great to me." I said, "Anything that I can do to learn something, learn and get better within the trades, make myself more, have a higher demand for me."
Mm-hmm.
So I did that, and with that, I started taking a balance class with that guy. So I went to class, I did that, and during that time also, I was asked to come back and teach apprenticeship. So I taught math and some different things at apprenticeship school. So I did 3 years of apprenticeships, 3 years of teaching after my apprenticeship. I did balancing for a year. I got pretty decent, pretty proficient at it. I could go out and balance a job. I'm air certified and qualified, and I am water qualified, but I'm not certified to do it. I know how to do it, which is great because I can go back out there right now, and I could probably, if something ever happened where I needed to, I could always go back out to the field,
Mm-hmm.
which is nice to know that you can if you need to. So I did that for a year, and work just kind of slowed down. And I was like, you know what? If you guys can't keep me busy, then I'm going to go to somewhere else. So then I went and I went back to the company I went through my apprenticeship with. I did a year of basically heavy industrial, welding. I made some handrails, which was cool. Never made handrails before. Don't tell any iron workers because they might get upset.
I can see that stuff.
Did some handrails. We had these 40-foot dust collectors that after we got done with them, they had to be shipped out and coated. We did, just a bunch of different stuff. I did some ductwork in between there too, some stainless welding, some different. I was kind of their small ticket guy. If someone walked in, they needed something specialty made, then I was the guy that handed the ticket, so I would go make it, which was cool because you learn so much. Because if you don't know, you've got guys there that have been doing it for years that do know, and they will teach you. So I did that on the heavy side, and then I went back to duct work, and right place, right time. You get to talking to somebody. Let's say, 9.5 years into it, I was working on a job with a guy, and me and him got to talking. We got along really well. Well, he had AutoCAD background. He went to school for it.
Okay. Yeah.
And he was working the trade. So the last company I was working for, they asked him to come in the office, and he started drawing and doing it on his own. He went to one class, and they're like, "Okay, here you go. You got to learn this." And
so, believe it or not, that's more of a story than you would think. A lot of people
does
just
not surprise me.
No, it's
just thrown in.
I mean, if you've taken Revit courses, you've taken AutoCAD courses. It's all like, this is how the book is done. This is how things work, and it's great. But until you get thrown into a process that you have to now develop a workflow, it all just goes out the other ear, and you're like, "What do I do?"
Oh yeah. Well, and Revit is such a powerful tool. The way I use it, I don't even use a fraction of what it can be used for. Because all I do is draw MEPs.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I do in Revit. I make ITMs or families, which families basically say you've got a unit that you're setting inside of a building.
Yeah.
Well, if they don't provide that unit, you've got to go in Revit and draw it and make it and set it in place.
Yep.
And I've even had people say, "Well, okay, what's the best way to get this unit in place?" So we'll go in my office and we'll bring it in and we'll rotate it. We'll rotate it 20 degrees and then bring it a little bit in, and then 30 degrees, and then keep on going until finally we can wedge it into place, which is awesome. It makes it. There's just so much you can do with it. So much. And
so would you say that you fell into it?
yeah, so the guy who I got along with really well, they're like, we need somebody else. They're like, we need another person up here drawing with you. Do you have anybody you'd recommend? And he said, well, I get along great with this guy. He's smart. He's younger. You know, he knows air balance, which I don't. He said, why don't you talk to him? And so me and his boss talked, and within, I think it was about 3 months, they brought me in, and I've been doing that ever since. The good thing about, and what's funny is my old boss used to tell everybody this. He goes, the good thing about what you do is you can, whenever you know this, you can go anywhere in the world and work. You really can.
That's the truth, and especially with a background like yours. Like I've been thinking of like, how do we talk about trade force diminishing and stuff like that? That's always a hot topic and stuff. And it's like, well, trades and BIM are like fighting each other, right? There's no trades everyone wants to go into BIM or to game design and stuff like that. And like the real path is you got to merge it, right? You got to figure out a plan that says, I'm going to go be a plumber for 4 years, and then I have this alternate path, right? I can go and master, or I can go and model, right?
Yeah.
And this master, who is also a plumber, is going to love the fact that there's a plumber modeling for him, right? That's a certified plumber modeling, certified HVAC, you know? And I think there's a true path of education that can be massive for everyone, especially for like, you know, you get out of high school. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I partied for 3 years, you know.
Trust me.
NIU was a second home. I didn't go to school there, but you know, I had a buddy that did. So
exactly.
It was, and you do that stuff, right? And if I was doing any kind of trade at that point, you know, I might be further along in my career than I am now. You know, it's just
and you know, with that too is you go in a trade, you don't know anything for school. I got out of a 4-year apprenticeship, and the year I got out of apprenticeship, you know, just around here with our wages, it was a $60,000 job, and that was 4 years, and I had no student debt, no loans, no nothing. You know, as a 2nd-year apprentice, I bought my own house because you get paid as you're going, and it just, you learn so much.
I want to hear, your idea of like, this kid's coming out of high school. He doesn't want to know what he wants to do with his life. And you go, you know what? Go into mechanical. Just do some welding. Yeah. How do you get this kid excited about welding? What's like the most exciting thing you did and you were like, you know, at the time that was the absolute shit. It was awesome.
So I think the best thing to do, if you don't know exactly what you want to do, they have in the trades, they have pre-apprentices. You can go and you can try it out. You know, no skin off your back, no skin off theirs. They will teach you what you're going to do. You can go to job fairs. I know at the Illinois State Fair, all of our unions have representation there, and they'll talk with you. You know, you can do that. You can go to a trade school if you want to, but whenever you get in the trade, they're going to say, okay, whatever they taught you, you know, take with a grain of salt. Here's how we're going to do it. I think one of the coolest things is knowing that, you know, you build something and you can step back and say, yes, I did that. My wife, she'll get sick and tired of me saying, you see that building right there? I did that ductwork. Or there's a school down the road from us. And so we drive by it very often. And I'm like, see that right there? And she goes, yeah, you put those fans on, you know, just stuff like that. And we, Chipotle here in town. I did the ductwork inside Chipotle, and we went there and ate a couple weeks ago. And I was looking up, and it's funny because I was looking at it, and she's like, "Did you do that?" And I said, "Yeah, I did." And a guy that I had met, he's a apprentice working for another contractor. I actually met him at a golf cart poker run back in October.
All
and
right.
Me and him got to talking, and we're both sheet metal workers. And I was looking up at the ductwork, and he came over. He's like, "I thought that was you," and I was like, "What?" Like I didn't put two and two together. He goes, "I thought it was, but whenever you looked up at the ductwork, I knew it was you." You know, you see that stuff, and you know, one of the shop foreman the other day just showed me a picture. He goes, check this out. He goes, this was in a restaurant. That is one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
I like,
And
BIM guys do the same thing. They'll walk around and be like, yeah, I can tell you where every piece of duct is in that building. Yeah, I didn't install it, but I drew it. It's just like, it's
but
the
I drew
same
it,
story. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So this capital project, it's been so rough that, and part of that being is we have our own scanner now, so we can verify things a lot easier. It's been so rough that me and the foreman are actually going over these drawings before we even send anything to fab. So I'm out there and I'm like, okay, you're gonna have a damper right there. You're gonna tap off here and run this way. And he's looking at the print like, man, how do you know that? How do you know this building so well? And it's like, well, I put every piece of duct in here, so I know where everything is. I know, just you get so used to it, it on paper, and then you go out there and you're like, oh yeah, this is how the structure looks. So here this stuff is.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's one of the coolest things is stepping back and looking at something. And if you do like a specialty project, like you make something out of stainless or you make something out of copper, that first time you do that, if you've got a sense of pride that you just made that, I feel like that's a good way to know that you would like the trades.
Yeah.
You step back and you admire what you did. Whether it be a carpenter, anything.
Yep. And it's always I'm gonna say it's always pretty. My dad has doing mechanic rooms and stuff, that copper pipe, lined up, all the bends look nice, straight, everything. Oh, it's beautiful.
Oh yeah.
And you kind of get that with BIM, but here's the thing with BIM, like when you're modeling stuff, right? You're doing, by the way, modeling is when you're taking all these parts and pieces, putting them in 3D, basically making a video game of a building, right? If anyone's played The Sims before, right? That's Revit.
Exactly.
Revit is
that's what you're doing.
I want to put a plant here. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's pretty much how the models come out to you too.
But the thing about it is you'll be doing this building and then you're doing it for 3 months and you just want to like fall asleep for another 3 months and just wake up and it'd be over. But the cool thing is when you take a step back and you realize, actually every part of that building that I helped fix or built or drew or model or coordinated or that one line that was a total pain in the ass that they knew was going to be a pain in the ass on site because we told them about it, right?
Yeah.
That's when you kind of get that sense of pride, right? When you have a finished model,
exactly.
There's so many things you can do with it. Like, you're contracted with other people. If you're doing stuff on the side, you're doing your own model on the side. Like, if you love Revit, you have your own models on your computer, right? I mean, I have my house model. Exactly. I have my house model, and I made the mistake of sharing that with my wife. So now I'm remodeling a lot of the house.
Now you're yeah.
But
that's funny.
You can take that and put it into these softwares like Unreal and Twinmotion. And I was on LinkedIn the other day, and there was these renderings in Twinmotion that looked like it came from a camera. The focus and everything. It was beautiful. It was beautiful. And so with the industry of BIM, we're talking just sheet metal right now. But BIM includes not everything that's a building. It includes all the building information management of a car or an engine or transmissions or machines and SolidWorks and Inventor. That is BIM, and I'm going to get a lot of hate for that. It's building information management. But think about it. It's information management in the digital space,
Yeah, and actually my brother-in-law works at CAT, and they're hiring AutoCAD people to go in there and draw parts and pieces for them. Yeah, that's BIM right there.
Yeah, I did it for there was a company in Arlington, north in Illinois and stuff, and we were making static pitot test equipment. And basically, it's like the plane lands. You put this thing on it, and it tests all the altimeters and stuff in the plane. Well, every plane, if you didn't know, has a different size pitot, right?
Really?
So so there's all these custom little cylinders that fit over this thing that you run lines and stuff through. And I had, you have no idea. I took this job right out of going to ITT Tech, which, if you're there to actually learn, you can learn, but this closed down for a reason.
Exactly.
But I got this job and they were like, yeah, we're hired. It's SolidWorks. I was like, great, because I didn't want to do anything with construction. I was all manufacturing.
Yeah.
And so I'm doing all this stuff, and the owner was an old school guy. And so I'm zooming in and out and making sure things fit. I'm doing my clash. And then he comes up and he goes, "How big is that piece?" And I throw a measurement. That's 3/4 of an inch. And he holds his thumb up like this. And he goes, "That's not 3/4 of an inch," just like that. And I was
Oh
like,
yeah.
"Let
me zoom in a little bit."
That's what I did. So he took his thumb to the screen, and I zoomed in to line up. I'm like, "How's that?" He goes, "Yeah, that works." And he walked away.
Probably never said anything about it again, did he?
But they have no idea what they want. That's another problem is if you don't understand BIM and you're asking for BIM, there's some things you got to understand. But what I'm getting at is there's so many cool things you can do with 3D models.
Oh, so many.
Beyond just the construction stuff we're talking about. I mean, do you get into any of that stuff?
I don't really. Now I do. Like, me and my wife are going to build a little cabin, and I made that building. I laid out furniture in there, everything. Like, we had it all planned out.
You made that mistake too, huh? You showed her the model, yeah.
Yeah, we went through all that. Didn't end up going that route, so it was but it was fun. It was cool to show. I'll show her stuff that I do, and I'm like, this is awesome to me. Like, I'll geek out on it.
Oh yeah.
It was funny because I say that because I was talking to the guy who got me into this. I was talking to him the other day, and told him I was over at we just acquired another company over in Champaign, so the other side of Illinois. So that way we can get in that market too, because they've already got a reputation there. They're just going to be a subsidiary of Reliable Mechanical, going to be a subsidiary of Henson. So I was over there and I was telling them that I got it to where I can export my fabrication directly to the shop foreman, and then he gets it all nested together 15 minutes away, hour and 20 minutes away, and they can build it right there. They don't have to input anything. They're not taking measurements. And he's like, man, he goes, I love that. He said, not a lot of people will understand that, but he goes, I can geek out on that stuff.
So just to kind of give everyone some clarity, and if you're in the business, you kind of know what's going on, but if you're not, basically what you're saying, Derek, is you are on your computer at home base. You're modeling everything. You got all your parts and pieces built out. You're sending it to the shop that's an hour away. And they don't have to do much but nest the pieces together and say, I want to cut or build A, B, C, and D. And then they hit start on their machine, and it starts cutting all that stuff together. On top of that, you have your drawings that go with it, and they can prefab that stuff. Now,
a foreman that was working over there, actually, that's going to be on this job, I showed him the prints and everything. He goes, man, this is awesome. He goes, this is exactly what we need. I mean, he was excited to know that, like you said, a tradesperson was modeling it for one, but excited to know that his job is that much easier. Now he's got to worry about manpower. He can worry about ordering, which, fabricating ductwork, you've got basically square duct that air's flowing through, and then you've got round, like basically taps that go to diffusers, right? And some pipe coming off there, depending on what CFM it is, will depend on what value it is. For some reason, we always go in evens. So, the ductwork's going to be, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, whatever.
Yep. And
the same thing on square duct. Almost all your square duct is in even numbers. If you come out to an odd number, usually you bump it up to the next one. And he goes, okay. He goes, well, can I take all my taps and stuff off here? And I was like, I said, just let me know whenever you want it. I'll send all that information to you. He goes, what?
Yeah, let's put the taps right in.
Yeah, exactly. I said, I'll send you exactly how many taps that you're going to need to order for each space. So we're going to break this job down, and it's about a 15,000 square foot building.
Yeah.
We're going to break it down into 500 or 5,000 square foot per area. So I'm going to send him all the information he needs from, for area 1, 2, and 3. And he's like, I don't have to do that takeoff. And I said, nope. I said, I'll have it all for you. He goes, now what about these pieces right here? You got a piece of 8-inch round. It says it's 6'2". And he goes, can I cut that to that length? And I said, yep. I said, you cut it, and if it's wrong, let me know. I'll come out there.
Yep.
Oh, and God, he's like, man, this is great.
I love that. That's
like, this
awesome.
Is great. Yeah. And it's worked out. It's worked out great. I'll say this. When BIM works, it works good. when you have an issue, it is you just want to pull your hair out. It is one of the most frustrating things. But then that pride thing comes in whenever you finally conquer it and you step back and you look and you're like, that's awesome. That turned out great. And you and the foreman are talk about it, because you've got to talk with that foreman out in the field.
Mm-hmm.
You might be in the office, but you're going to spend some time out in the field talking to foreman. You are going to get to know the guys like you're out in the field, just with them all the time. They're going to say, "Hey, Derek, how's it going?" Whenever I pull up, you got to have that. You got to be able to talk to people. You got to be able to understand where they're coming from, because you may walk out there and they may have just had the biggest fit with whatever you were trying to make it work, and it doesn't work, and you may get an ass chewing over it. You may just have to take it because it just didn't work.
Right. And a lot of people, a lot of the older generation, the old school guys, they don't trust the tech, and they're like, well, you can give me a list, but I'm going to measure it all myself. And so it's a hard concept to get across in the field, but you being a field guy in the field with the drawings you drew, there's kind of some leeway there. So you got some what is that? Some backup, some swag coming in there saying like, yeah, you know what, I messed up. And they're like, yeah, we would have messed up too at that point, but you got pretty close, Now me, if I come in there, I got the very shiny hard hat,
Hard hat.
And I make sure I don't wear a tie, but I get the very sharp, and they're like, oh shit, yeah, this guy's doesn't know shit.
What's this guy doing?
Yep. Okay.
It's funny because
Go ahead.
They tried giving, just real quick, they tried giving me a new hard hat, and I was like, I got to wear my own.
I've definitely taken my hard hat out on sites and kind of, can I get
in the dirt?
Put a sticker on there, scrape it a little bit.
Oh yeah. You got to sometimes.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I want to know, if I wanted to be where you're at today, like, what does it take for someone to really get into BIM, or what's it take? Like, what does their demeanor have to be when they're starting to get off into this? Let's say I have no experience. I'm learning BIM on my own. I have a reputable site I'm following. I'm Autodesk certified. Didn't go to school. But now I want to go into an MEP contractor. I want to go into a modular construction site. I want to go into a structural engineering firm, and I want to start modeling.
Mm-hmm. So my first answer to that is always going to be go to the trade and learn it. But if you don't have that opportunity, that option doesn't come about. You just got to hammer down. You've got to get out there. You've got to see it. You've got to talk to the guys. If you don't know it, you need to get out there and ask them how they would do it. Mm-hmm. Because ultimately, those are the people you have to keep happy. Yep. Because if you don't keep your field foreman happy, they're going to take your paper, they're going to throw it away, and they're going to measure it themselves. Yep. And I've seen it happen. Yep. I've seen people say, "This is worthless. I can do better with a crown and a piece of cardboard."
I had I had a team, and when I first started there, and I got appointed this position, we took some of the drawings out there and went to the guys like, "What do you guys use on this drawing?" It was a CAD file, and they laughed at me and said, "We don't really use it." I was like, "Oh, so we're drawing for nothing." So I gave them a whole set without their drawing in it, and they were missing it. And I was like, "Well, you guys don't use it." And so they come back and whatever. So we would actually go and say, "Okay, what do you need to see on the drawing? What specifically, right? How can I get this down to streamline it where my guys can give you what you want on time every time? And if you want additional equipment, how can you do it, right?" So what you said is something that I preached as well. I was like, look, if you don't know how to do it, which none of you do, you need to go find that supervisor on the floor, and you need to talk to that person. You're trying to learn how he would do it so you can draw it for him so he can do it, right? It is the BIM and designer's job to make sure, I mean, now, it wasn't before, but it is now, to make sure that the field guys have a nice and easy time installing and doing the stuff. Because before, field guys would do it, change order, I'm going to measure this, and I'm going to install this. I don't know what the drawing says. That's way wrong. They don't know what they're talking about, right? But now it's to the point where it's, I'm going to give you a 16-tooth piece of duct, and it's going to fit in this spot exactly. So
Exactly. And it's, with that too is I've spent time out in the field because the foreman's like, "Hey, like, like these drawings, I'm not very happy with them. So, I've been doing this for about 2.5 years. Been in the BIM world for 2.5 years. And from when I started to now, I've changed the way I do layout drawings and spools 4 times, and 3 of them were just in the last 2 years, because it's you have to find a happy median with everybody. And I hope nobody takes this the wrong way, but something that somebody told me, they said you have to think about the guy who doesn't know anything, the first year guy out there on the job site, and you need to make it to where he can understand what you're putting on paper.
Yeah, I think that's a great explanation. I mean, that's a lot of it. Is, like I said, I've been in this for 5 years that I knew of BIM, right? And I really started putting myself out there, being exposed. But part of it is it's a puzzle, and if you enjoy puzzles, by God, get into Revit or BIM, because I can't tell you how many workflows I've done over Revit templates, tags, schedules. You are constantly troubleshooting, and it's a fun experience. It's not like it's a pain in the butt, right? So and there's a wide community of information you can use. So Autodesk Forum is huge.
Reach out to Alex. I mean,
but that's what it is. LinkedIn is a great network for it, and right now it's the only one right now for it. But I think if you enjoy puzzles and you want to find the best solution and you really like streamlining things, getting into BIM is going to provide you massive upsides, because not only is BIM including all this modeling stuff, that, you and I are talking about, it includes that back end stuff. There's people in companies that all they do is make families all day. So if you can imagine, all you're doing is modeling equipment or chairs or, like, if you're working for a manufacturer, I mean, IKEA, like you're making
all
IKEA equipment.
All of that is everywhere. Yep. There is furniture systems. There is lights, light poles, trees. I mean, the topography. Yeah. Inside of the models, which is basically your landscapes. Yep. They model everything. They've got people who are walking through there in the models. They really think of everything whenever you do this. And, even like, we talked about the MEP side of things. If you're not a tradesperson either, or you're not an MEP person, you can always be a coordination guy. You can run the class reports. You can set up jobs.
Yep.
You can do the behind the scenes stuff.
And that's kind of what I was talking about, going that traditional route through college. You get all that experience in there, right?
Yeah.
You get all that, know how to do that. Now, that's a different class. There's that, and then there's modelers, and then there's like manufactured MEP, and then there's backwards development organization. Like, I would hire game developers all the time, because
because they know
the same mindset. Yeah, there's code in Revit. You can freely code whatever you want. It's an open API too, if you know what you're doing, right?
Yeah. I wish I knew what I was doing with that.
I think a lot of us wish we would,
I could make
right?
things a lot easier.
Oh man. And the efficiencies you gain for your company and stuff, like all these ways to grow and move forward, because a lot of companies right now are either just adapting it, or they're kind of forced to adapt it, because a lot of these guys are requiring BIM, these GCs for their projects and things like that.
Yeah.
And it's great that everyone's getting into it, but I think it should really be embraced. Like, if you're like, we're going to go into BIM, okay, I need that person who's going to be my lead. Fully. And I need that rock star. So I need the lead person, and I need that rock star. And from there, you can build a team that's just crazy.
You've got to have the right people in the right place. And if you don't, it's just like anything else. You just have to do that, because you're gonna throw money away if you don't. Me and the owner of my company walked by the other day. He's like, "Hey, how's it going?" I was like, "Big win today." And he's like, "Yeah." And I said, "Me and Derek sat here," which there's another shop foreman. His name's Derek too.
Oh, that's great.
I said, "We sat here." And I said, "We sat here, and we now have where we can export ductwork with liner on the inside of it to the shop without him having to go in there and manually change anything." So now that's a time saver right there. Over the course of time, that's a huge money saver. The 5-6 hours we spend on doing it is going to pay itself off 10 times over the next year. And it's all because of setting those, getting everything in place to do what you want it to do.
Let's talk hiring for a minute. Right.
Okay.
You've gone and hired some people, right? And you've had winners, you've had duds, right?
Yeah.
How would you convince, because I've talked to a couple of professors now, there's a lot of people getting into game development, game design, and they're not really getting into architecture, engineering, and stuff like that. How would you entice a game developer, person going into college for game development to, hey, have you checked out BIM before? What would you say to them that you can do with BIM that you can do with game development? On the spot.
I'd say, hey, game development, you are thinking about something that you will never see in real life. In BIM, you can go to that building and physically say, I did this. That's how I would try to sell it. Like you can show off your work to everybody who drives by. And it's, you can drive by it every day and take that sense of pride that you did that.
Yeah.
That would be my selling point. I don't know if it would help out or not, but that would definitely be my selling point of it.
Well, it's interesting to hear because like people I've hired, I'm like, okay, so code, right? If they're doing development, they love code. It's like a second language. Again, I don't pretend to know any of this stuff, but I tell them like, here's this code that you can write for the program we're using to do what you want. Here's your design, right? Or you want to build 3D landscapes in Unreal Engine or Twin. Here's the building you can build a 3D landscape for. Like I know Unreal Engine has all these like blueprints that you can build games and stuff with. I've dabbled in it a little bit. Well, you can take a 3D model that you've done, a building of some kind, bring it into Unreal Engine, render it out. You can run Clash with your character, so he'll go up and down stairs. You can give the character, so you can do like a first-person shooter in your building. It's like basically the really cheap version of Call of Duty, all without having to know how to code. You can just take that, put it in there.
That's crazy.
See,
I've never done any of that stuff.
It's
nuts what you can do.
Yeah, it's so expanding on what you can do with BIM, not only just within the construction side, because it is exciting. I can't tell you, like, that modular company I worked for, that was like my calling. It was the perfect mixture of manufacturing and construction, where it was, here's an assembly line. Here's every part and piece of that assembly line. Okay, so to be honest, I didn't want to get into construction because I hate fractions. And, decimals.
That tape measure.
I was like, that's 3 dashes past 1. No. Everyone out there, I know how to read the tape measure.
There's always one person in apprenticeship. Whenever they start their first year, they don't know how to read a tape. There's always
That's why they're apprentices, right?
Yeah, exactly. They learn. They have dummy tapes now. That's what I call them. They've got 8ths on there, so all you got to do is add a 16th every time you go past an 8.
Yeah, I definitely have one of those in my house.
I had to throw it away. Whenever I was an apprentice, I used it. I bought one because it was cheap, and they're like, "Are you serious?" And I was like, "All right, I'm done. I heard it enough."
No, that's great. Well, Derek, I appreciate you being on the podcast today. You got anything going on you want to share with the viewers?
Just got a couple projects going on. Illinois State Capitol, great project. It's been very challenging, thankfully. Field team's been working great with me. We got a job at University or ISU, Illinois State University. It's been good. That was a great job. We coordinated that pretty quick. The foreman, I met with him. That was one of the guys I talked to the other day. They was loving every bit of it. And we've got a couple school jobs going on and just some odds and ends here and there. But I can't, you'll see some stuff on LinkedIn. I'll post some of, kind of what our workflows are and kind of what we do for schools and stuff like that. And, it's always nice to hear someone else's opinion of what you're doing.
Right.
When someone says, man, you guys are doing good over there. It's always nice to hear that, and if somebody says, you gotta maybe try this way, never shoot someone's ideas down because you never know what's going to come.
Also, don't come off like a dick.
That is the biggest thing.
You're doing it wrong.
That is the biggest thing.
Everyone out there, if you want to follow Derek on LinkedIn, also, if you have any sheet metal questions for fabrication-wise, this is the guy to know. He's in the shop doing it, especially with that workflow he talked about earlier today.
Yeah.
If you guys like what was going on, feel free to like, subscribe, and follow. The Summit Podcast will be releasing hopefully weekly with new guests on here. And Derek, maybe we'll have you back.
Hey, that sounds good. Just let me know. I'm free anytime for you, Alex.
Awesome. Thanks, Derek.
All right. Thanks.